I was born with a weak constitution. To cure my illness, my brother exhausted all of our family's savings. That day, he carried me on his back to a temple and hid me behind a statue of Buddha.
Anluo, I will be back very soon. Wait for me here.
But I waited, and he never returned. When I went to look for him, I found our family house had already been sold. My brother was just about to leave after taking the bag of money, when a neighboring aunt happened to pass by and called out to him,
Young Master Shen, where is your sister? Why haven't I seen her?
My sister was weak. She couldn't hold on and has already passed away.
I turned around and left. I found the human trafficker who had once kidnapped me, knelt before him, and said, my brother doesn't want me anymore. Please sell me again. The trafficker stared at me.
You aren't lying to me, are you? Last time I took you away, your brother chased me for 3 whole blocks with a wooden club. 3 whole blocks. Do you know how miserably I had to run? It was my first time doing this business too. I thought finding you a good home would be a good deed. But in the end, I was locked up by the government for half a month and fined a lot of money. Has this been easy for me? I was already dirt poor to begin with.
I knelt on the ground and looked up at him. It is true. He doesn't want me. The trafficker was stunned.
How could he just not want you? Last time to find you, your brother ran so fast his shoes flew off. He looked like he was fighting for his life.
I buried my head again and remained silent. He let out a sigh and waved his hand.
I got out of this business a long time ago. It is no use coming to find me. Go back, go back. Don't keep kneeling here. If people see you, they'll think I'm kidnapping a child.
I stood up, feeling completely lost and dazed. The moment I stood up, my vision suddenly went black. My body swayed and I fell backward.
Hey kid. The human trafficker's shout came from far away. Don't blame this on me. I didn't even touch you. Someone come take a look quickly. I didn't touch her.
I didn't know how much time had passed. I felt something poking my face. Again and again, struggling to open my eyes. A chubby little face was close to mine, staring at me with a pair of pitch black eyes. It was a little girl about my age. Seeing that I was awake, her eyes lit up instantly, and she happily ran out, making ah sounds from her throat. Not long after, she dragged someone inside. It was the trafficker. He shuffled to the bedside and poked his head in to glance at me.
Oh my goodness. You scared the life out of me. I thought you were trying to frame me. Fortunately, the physician came to check on you and said you just fainted from hunger. As for your constitution, it is full of ailments. Didn't you say your brother was good to you? How did he let you starve like this? Now you owe me 30 copper coins.
I lay there, saying nothing. The little girl ran back inside, holding a warm sweet potato in her hands. It felt very warm, and steam was still rising from it. She stuffed the sweet potato into my hand, gesturing for me to eat. The trafficker glanced at her.
Chow chow. Why didn't you eat it? Wasn't that saved for you?
The girl named Chow Chow stared at me and then began to gesture. She pointed at me for a moment, patted her own stomach, and then shook her head. The trafficker watched for a moment and said to me,
She says she is not hungry and is saving it for you.
I froze for a second. She couldn't speak. Chow Chow smiled at me, revealing 2 little canine teeth, and then went skipping out. The trafficker watched her retreating figure, shook his head, and looked back at me.
Girl, let me tell you the truth. Abducting you last time was my bad. But you can't just cling to me because of that, can you? You're the only one I've ever taken. I'm a novice too.
He hesitated for a moment. That matter last time was permitted by your brother. I snapped my head up.
He couldn't afford to feed you anymore and asked me to find you a wealthy family, the kind where you can eat your fill and dress warmly. I figured this counted as a good deed, so I agreed. And what happened right after I took you away? He came chasing after me with a wooden club. He chased me for 3 streets and then turned around and reported me.
The more the trafficker spoke, the angrier he got, his face turning red with frustration.
Are you 2 siblings playing a game with me? One has me sell you, and the other reports me to claim the reward. I ended up locked up and fined. What was all that for?
I opened my mouth but couldn't say a single word. So that was how it was. So brother had planned this all along.
Chow Chow is my younger sister. She had a high fever when she was young. The fever subsided and her life was saved, but she could never speak again.
I followed his gaze and looked out of the room. Chow Chow was squatting in the yard, picking flowers.
I originally planned to get her treated. I visited many clinics, but they all said it was incurable. Later, I inquired around and heard there is a famous doctor in the capital who can treat her, but that would require a huge sum of money. I figured in my mind that if I saved up enough silver, sooner or later I could take her there. There is an influential family in town. You know of the Zhen and Marquis mansion, right? The old dowager of the Marquis mansion is staying here with her grandson to recuperate. That boy is the heir to the Marquis mansion, named Zhou Tanyuan. He is also a constant invalid who starts gasping for breath after walking just a few steps. And he has an extremely nasty temperament. A fortune teller said he wouldn't survive past 15. Calculating the time, he only has half a year left. No one knows where this old Taoist priest came from, acting all mysterious and superstitious, claiming his horoscope is unfavorable, and that they must find a compatible match to bring good luck through marriage in order to save his life. Last time your brother came to find me, saying your horoscope is destined for great wealth and status, and asked me to sell you to the Marquis mansion, not to be a servant, but to prolong that young master's life.
What did my brother say?
He said you had been sickly since childhood, yet you always managed to turn danger into safety, which is a blessing from heaven. If you could go ward off the misfortune for young Master Zhou, it would benefit the fortunes of both of you. I didn't agree. That young Master Zhou has a terrible temperament. He has already driven away several groups of maidservants by beating them. With your fragile frame, you'd definitely be done for within 3 days of going in. I had already arranged a buyer beforehand. They are farmers, not very wealthy, but they have no children of their own, and were hoping to raise a child. Unfortunately, they just picked up an abandoned infant, so they don't want another one now.
I sat up straight and pleaded with him, then just sell me again. The human trafficker was dumbfounded.
What did you say?
Sell me to the Marquis's estate. Aren't you short on money? If you sell me, won't you get the money? His face turned red with frustration. He suddenly leaped to his feet.
What nonsense are you talking? No matter how much of a scoundrel I am, I can't do such a thing. Last time your brother was trying to ruin me. If I really sent you to the Marquis's estate, wouldn't I become a murderer?
My brother has already abandoned me. I have no home. No matter where I run, it is a dead end. Looking at my tears, he stomped his foot in frustration. He pushed the hot sweet potato back into my hands.
Fill your stomach first. We'll talk about the rest later.
After finishing the sweet potato, I walked out of the room. In the courtyard, Chow Chow was crouching on the ground, digging for something with a small iron shovel. I took a closer look. It was dandelions. She looked up and saw me, grinning widely. She showed me the few dandelions she had just dug up. Just as I was about to squat down and help her, suddenly, I heard a chaotic flurry of footsteps coming from the entrance of the alley. Several men emerged from a blind spot. The leader was a burly, fierce-looking man. He spotted Chow Chow at once. Striding forward quickly, he tightly grabbed her arm.
Hey, little mute, where is your brother?
Chow Chow trembled all over in fear. She covered her head, making frightened, whimpering noises.
I'm talking to you. Where is that bastard Ding Dakyang hiding? When does he plan to pay back the money he borrowed from me?
Before I could even react, a dark shadow rushed out of the room. It was Ding Dakyang. He quickly shielded Chow Chow and me behind his back, blocking the path of those thugs, with a forced smile plastered on his face.
Brother who? What brings you here in person? Let's talk this over slowly.
Before he could even finish his sentence, Brother Hu kicked him hard in the stomach. Ding Dakyang's entire body flipped backward, crashing heavily onto the ground.
Slowly talk over my ass.
Brother Hu squatted down and slapped his face.
Ding Dakyang, the deadline I gave you is up. Where is the money?
Clutching his stomach tightly, Ding Dakyang pushed himself up, knelt in the mud, and pressed his forehead hard against the ground.
Brother Hu, please give me just a few more days. I promise I'll pay you back.
A few more days?
He turned his head to glare at Chow Chow, who was hiding in the corner.
If you don't pay up, I will throw your mute sister into the river to feed the turtles.
Chow Chow shrank back in terror, tears silently streaming down her cheeks. Brother Hu shifted his gaze, lingering on my face for a second.
Where did you find another little girl? This little chick looks like she'd fetch a better price.
The moment those words were spoken, Ding Dakyang began kowtowing frantically, slamming his forehead against the ground with a series of loud, heavy thuds.
Brother Hu, please don't touch my sister. She is nothing but skin and bones. Take it out on me. Take it out on me. I will definitely get the money.
His forehead was split open and bleeding, with blood dripping down his eyebrows, but he didn't even care to wipe it away.
This little girl is just passing by. She is not part of my family. Please don't trouble her either.
Brother Hu was amused by his miserable state. He bent down and slapped his face twice more.
I'll give you 3 more days. Once 3 days are up, if I still don't see the money, both you and your sister are going into the river.
With that, he straightened up and swaggered off with his gang of thugs. Ding Dakyang collapsed to his knees on the ground and only managed to stand up after a long while. He turned around, pulled Chow Chow, who was hiding in the corner, into his arms, and gently stroked her hair.
Are you okay, Chow Chow? Were you scared?
Chow Chow shook her head and gestured with her hands. Ding Dakyang watched her for a moment and forced a smile.
I'll go to the docks and ask Master San again. Last time I wasn't used to the work and ended up with internal injuries from the heavy loads. This time I can definitely earn more. Don't worry, I've long since recovered.
Standing nearby, watching the siblings hold each other tightly, I felt a sudden, sharp pang of sorrow in my heart. Although Chow Chow was mute, she had a brother who was willing to kowtow desperately for her. I was a normal person, but my brother had long since abandoned me as a burden. Looking at Ding Dakyang and Chow Chow holding each other tightly, the image of someone else filled my mind. I once had an older brother like that too. When I was young, my health was actually quite good. My mother would go to the market to sell poultry and eggs and leave me in my brother's care. I was 3 years old back then, and he was 15. My brother loved to read, and he would get completely lost in his books. I was playing in the courtyard, and, as I played, I ran after a flying disc. I lost my footing and tumbled into the pool. By the time I was pulled out of the water, I had a fever so high that I blacked out. From that day on, my constitution was completely ruined. I would cough every few days and gasp for breath after walking just a few steps. I never went out in the dead of winter, nor did I dare expose myself to drafts in the heat of summer. My brother didn't dare admit that he had failed to keep an eye on me. When our parents questioned him, he only said that I was too playful and that I had fallen in on my own. But that very night, while our parents were fast asleep, he quietly slipped over to my bedside, held me tight, and wept bitterly.
Anluo, it is my fault. I didn't watch over you well. I promised to treat you well for the rest of my life, to take good care of you, and never let you suffer again.
Later, our parents passed away, leaving only the two of us. From the age of 3 to 5, during those 2 years, he never once thought of abandoning me. Unable to afford a doctor, he looked through medical books himself and went up the mountains to gather herbs for me. The doctor said I couldn't be exposed to drafts, so, in the freezing winter, he would pile his own blanket on top of mine. Whenever he got some good food, he would always claim he wasn't hungry and stuff it all into my hands. I remember one time he heard of a doctor in the neighboring village, so he pulled me along and rushed over there. The doctor refused to see me, saying it was untreatable, and tried to send us away. So, my brother knelt outside the door and begged relentlessly for half a day. In the end, the doctor finally gave in and prepared a few packs of herbal medicine for me. My brother carried me home on his back in the rain, grinning happily all the way and shouting,
Anluo, you're going to live.
Those herbal decoctions were incredibly bitter and hard to swallow, but I finished them obediently every single time. After all, my brother had begged on his knees for them. After taking them for a while, my health did indeed improve a bit, but I had to be kept on the medicine. Otherwise, my condition would deteriorate again. Not long ago, I accidentally overheard him chatting with a classmate. The classmate said that with my brother's talent, he was highly likely to pass the examinations. My brother only smiled and didn't answer. The classmate got angry and said,
Your sister is nothing but a medical liability. Not to mention you're just someone your parents took in. Are you going to ruin your own bright future for her sake forever?
I hid behind the door, holding my breath. After all this time, it turned out I was adopted.
Anluo needs to be taken care of.
That very night, he carried me on his shoulders to the temple and placed me behind the statue of the deity. He ruffled my hair and said,
Anluo, stay hidden behind the statue. I have some things to take care of, but I'll be right back. The debt collectors are here again. It is getting messy outside, so you stay here for now. Once I resolve this trouble, I'll come back and take you away.
I nodded slightly and curled up in the darkness, watching him turn around and walk away, firmly believing he would definitely return. After enduring 3 days, I was so hungry I could barely keep my eyes open. Yet, I held on to the belief that he must have run into some trouble. He spoiled me so much. He would never abandon me. When I dragged myself back home, fighting for my last breath, the door to the house already belonged to a new tenant. My brother was standing right outside the door. He had just taken a money pouch and turned around, preparing to leave. Fat auntie from next door happened to walk by and called out to him,
Young Master Shen, where is your sister? Why haven't I seen the girl?
My brother's eyes grew red.
My sister was gravely ill and didn't make it. She has already passed away.
I froze in place, feeling as if a hole had been pierced through my heart, leaving it completely hollow. Ding Dakyang left before dawn in the morning. He said he was going to the ferry crossing to find Third Master. Third Master had work over there. He could earn 30 copper coins a day carrying sacks. By dusk, when it was pitch black, that was when he finally returned. His back was hunched, unable to straighten up. He shuffled into the courtyard one tiny step at a time. Chow Chow rushed forward to support him, her tears pouring down. She gestured to ask him if he was in pain.
I'm fine. Your brother has a strong build. This little bit of hardship is nothing.
He fished a greaseproof paper bag out of his pocket and placed it into Chow Chow's and my hands.
I brought this for you, sister.
I opened it to take a look. It was 2 pieces of multigrain bread, still steaming hot.
This is all I can afford to give you. The rest of the money must be saved for Chow Chow's medical treatment. Just make do with this, don't look down on it.
I stared at those 2 pieces of multigrain bread and then looked at his face, which was covered in dirt. It felt as though my throat was completely blocked by something. By now, Chow Chow had brought over some boiled water. Ding Dakyang took it and gulped it down. I didn't touch those 2 pieces of multigrain bread. In the night, while they were both fast asleep, I secretly crept up and stepped out of the courtyard gate. Following the path I took in the morning, I went straight to the manor of the Marquis of Zhenan. It was the grandest place in this area. It had a bright red gate with 2 stone-carved lions crouching outside, taller than a grown adult. Standing at the bottom of the steps, I looked up at the high entrance, then raised my arm and banged on the gate. A guard poked his head out.
Who is it in the middle of the night?
My name is Shen Anluo. I heard that the heir is looking for someone with an auspicious birth chart to ward off his illness. I can do it. He was startled, scanned me from head to toe, and then turned back into the manor. I waited outside the gate for a long time, until an elderly maidservant dressed in silk robes walked out, followed by 2 young maids.
Where are your family members?
They're gone. She frowned slightly.
So you came all by yourself?
I thought about it for a moment and decided to tell the honest truth. I have an older brother. The old woman turned around and told me to keep up. The old lady of the house had not retired for the night yet. Upon seeing me, she squinted her eyes and studied me for a long time.
My grandson is indeed in frail health, but we hardly need to find a 4 or 5-year-old toddler to prolong his life. Go on home, little girl.
I fell to both knees, pressing my forehead firmly against the floor. I came here of my own free will. My lady, I am already a full 5 years old. My family is poor. My brother is on the verge of collapsing from trying to support me. He carries heavy sacks every day, and he can't even straighten his back anymore. He also has another sister, who is mute and very small. The old lady remained silent. I continued speaking. A fortune teller declared that I am blessed with good fortune. I can do this. After a long silence, she spoke.
Where is your home?
The 3rd house in the East Street alley. My brother is called Ding Dakyang. The old lady told me to stand up. She instructed the maid beside her to deliver the silver to them. The old woman who had led me and pulled me up.
Stand up and follow me.
I was led into a side courtyard. The old woman ordered hot water to be prepared and had me bathe myself. After I finished bathing, she gave me a few words of advice.
The young master is not actually that cruel. His health is just too weak. On the 15th of every month, he suffers from excruciating pain. He only loses his temper when the pain becomes unbearable. It goes back to when Madame was pregnant with him. She was plotted against and poisoned. He was born this way.
I didn't dare say a word, just listened quietly. She led me into a small room.
Starting tomorrow, you will serve the young master. You must do whatever the young master tells you to do.
I nodded my head. After hesitating for a long time, I asked the old woman for a steamed bun. She was a little surprised, but she still brought me 3 meat buns instead. After the old woman left, I curled up alone at the head of the bed, staring at the pitch-black ceiling, not daring to close my eyes the entire night. Early, the next morning, the old woman led me into another courtyard. Several maidservants stood under the eaves, all keeping their heads down in silence. A young master stood by the window, wearing a snow-white robe. He had a thin, frail frame and was reading a book with his hands lowered. Hearing the movement, he turned his face toward us. His features were quite handsome, except his lips were completely pale and bloodless.
Nanny Chin, where did this child come from? Does our manor buy maidservants this small now? What can she even do? She is so short and chubby.
I almost choked on my breath. But Nanny Qian acted as if she hadn't heard a thing, speaking with utmost respect.
This was arranged by the old madame. She brought this person for you, young master.
Zhou Tanyuan furrowed his brow tightly.
Grandmother is truly getting senile, believing the words of those old Taoists. Nanny Qian, take her away. My fate was sealed long ago. If I die, so be it. Dying will save me from suffering like this.
Nanny Qian's eyes grew red.
Young master, the old madame is doing this for your own good.
For my own good.
Zhou Tanyuan flew into a sudden, inexplicable rage. If she wanted what is best for me, she should let me die. He suddenly grabbed a teacup from the table and hurled it viciously at my feet. I took a half step back in shock, but after throwing it, he began to gasp heavily. His face was as white as paper. His entire body swayed as he propped himself up against the edge of the table. How is his constitution even weaker than mine? Instinctively, I edged closer. I stood on tiptoe and reached out to pat his back. Young master, Please do not be angry. Mother Qian hurriedly left to call for a doctor. She told me to do as the young master said, and then she quickly departed, but I didn't know what he would have me do. By this time, Zhou Tanyuan's anger had subsided. He brushed my hand away, reached out to grab a handkerchief, and covered his mouth with it. There was a smear of bright red on the handkerchief. I stood frozen on the spot, my palms sweating. I looked left and right, spotted the teapot on the table, and quickly ran forward. Standing on tiptoe, I poured a full cup of tea and brought it over to him. Please drink, young master. He looked down at the teacup I was holding and frowned.
What is your name?
Shen Anluo.
My fate is already sealed. Grandmother is just worrying too much. If you want to die, then stay. There is no telling when I might choke you to death.
If I stayed, I could still survive. I could also earn money for Ding Daqiang to treat Chow Chow's illness, but if I ran away, then everything would be completely ruined. I beg you to let me stay, young master. His face was full of doubt.
Where are your parents?
My father was killed by a black bear while hunting. My mother went to look for him and fell off a cliff.
Do you know how many people I have choked to death? 50.
I trembled, and my knees almost buckled, but in the next instant, I snapped out of it. He was talking nonsense. Ding Daqiang had said he was merely bad-tempered, but had never actually killed anyone. Young master.
Yes?
You're bluffing. His cold sneer froze on his face. You're only 14 to kill 50 people. You'd have to kill 5 a year starting from age 4. Who could you have choked to death at 4 years old? Besides, when you threw the teacup just now, your hands were shaking completely. You couldn't even throw a teacup straight, let alone kill someone. Zhou Tanyuan's breathing grew rapid.
Well, I don't keep useless people here either.
I panicked. I'm not useless. I just poured water for you. I can also wash your feet, feed you, wipe the tables, sweep the floor, and water the flowers. I know how to do so many things. He was so amused, he scoffed.
Do I need you to feed me? But seeing how you look a bit like my aunt. If you want to stay, then stay. Just don't regret it.
I let out a sigh of relief, fearing he might change his mind. I immediately started looking for things to do to keep the young master from throwing me out. I kept myself spinning like a spinning top. During mealtime, I stood by his side, intently picking out the fish bones for him, but he ate too quickly. Before I could even finish picking out the bones, he had already scarfed down his rice. Zhou Tanyuan set down his chopsticks and glanced at me.
Stop picking. Eat the fish yourself. With the way you're picking at those bones, this fish practically died in vain.
I was overwhelmed by his unexpected kindness. I sat down and took small, delicate bites of the fish. As I was chewing, a sudden sharp pain hit the back of my throat. A bone was stuck. I clutched my throat, tears welling up in my eyes, but I didn't dare make a sound, fearing he would find me a nuisance. Zhou Tanyuan saw the state I was in and furrowed his brow tightly.
Is it stuck?
I nodded my head, my eyes brimming with tears.
Tack, how useless.
Oh no, he is definitely going to find me a nuisance and prepare to kick me out. But instead, I heard him call for someone to bring a bowl of vinegar and hand it to my lips.
Drink it.
I gulped it down, the sourness screwing my entire face into a knot. My teeth went numb, and I couldn't catch my breath for a long while. The corner of his mouth twitched, as if he was holding back a laugh. For the rest of the day, I didn't eat a thing. My teeth were too sore to chew anything. The old lady had poor eyesight, yet she came to visit her grandson every few days. Every time she came, she would always sit in Zhou Tanyuan's room for a long time. On one of those occasions, she mistook me for Zhou Tanyuan.
Yuaner, why are you standing there like a post? How did you get so short?
Old madam, I am Anluo.
Oh, it is Anluo. Short and plump. I thought it was Yuaner.
Another time, she stood at the doorway of the room, staring at me for a moment, and suddenly said,
Who moved the money tree here? Aren't they afraid someone might trip over it? Hurry up and move it away.
Old madam, it is me.
Oh, Anluo. You really do look quite like a money tree.
From then on, Money Tree became my nickname in the Marquis's manor. When Zhou Tanyuan was in a good mood, he would occasionally call me that. Every time, I would daze out for a long while before realizing he was calling me. Ever since I entered the manor, the way Mother Qian looked at me seemed a bit strange from time to time. Sometimes, while I was working, I would look up and find her staring straight at me. That afternoon, I was gathering sweet osmanthus flowers under the osmanthus tree. I planned to sew a sachet for the young master. I heard sweet osmanthus can soothe the mind. He always sleeps fitfully in the middle of the night, squatting in the dirt. I picked them up one by one, filling a small basket. Just as I stood up, my vision suddenly went black, and my entire body fell backward. A hand caught me. It was Nanny Qian. She helped me sit on a stone bench. Just as she was about to ask me what happened, her gaze suddenly fell on the nape of my neck. In an instant, she was dumbfounded. There was a birthmark there, shaped like a butterfly.
Anluo, On which day is your birthday?
The 6th day of the 5th lunar month. My parents always celebrated it for me on that day. Thinking about it, I added another line. But I was adopted, so I suppose no one knows my actual birthday. Nanny Qian shuddered in surprise, a flash of excitement crossing her face.
Then, on your person, were you carrying any jade pendant or something like that?
A jade pendant? No. My family is poor. We couldn't afford such a rare thing. Her face showed a hint of unwillingness, mixed with some regret. When evening came, the old madame suddenly brought a physician to examine me. The physician took my pulse, asked about my symptoms, and finally said to the old madame,
Old madam, this girl is weak. Her constitution is severely depleted. She must be slowly nurtured with precious herbs, at least 3 to 5 years or even.
Hearing this, Zhou Tanyuan let out a scoff.
So this money tree is also a medicine jar. Listen to this, grandmother. How is this bringing fortune to one's life? She is clearly destined for illness just like me. She might even die before I do. I've changed my mind. Send her away as soon as possible.
He was right. I wasn't here to extend his life. I was here to annoy him. The old lady glared at him.
What nonsense are you talking?
Zhou Tanyuan ignored her and continued to scare me.
Grandmother, if you don't chase Anluo away, do you plan to have her buried alive with me?
Buried alive. I shivered with fear.
Money tree. When I draw my last breath, I'll order them to make a small coffin to place beside mine. Since you want to serve me so badly, you can follow me to the afterlife and keep serving me.
I swallowed hard, tears welling up in my eyes.
Stop scaring people. Xiaoyuan, you won't die, and Luo won't die either. Both of you must live well.
She ordered the physician to prescribe the finest medicine to nurse me back to health. Old madam, I can never repay this. The old lady wanted to stroke my cheek, but her hand landed on Zhou Tanyuan's cheek instead.
It is fine. I can afford to raise you. And Luo, how did your face get bigger?
Grandmother, it is me.
No wonder it felt a bit prickly.
I could barely hold back my laughter and quickly covered my mouth. Zhou Tanyuan's face turned green. The old lady was still rubbing his face, mumbling to herself.
Xiaoyuan, you must eat more. You're too skinny, even your face is prickly.
Grandmother, have you touched me enough?
All right. Grandmother is leaving. Treat Luo well, and don't bully her.
From then on, the old lady came to visit me often, even more frequently than she visited Zhou Tanyuan. Every time she came, she brought food and clothes, holding my hand and asking after my well-being, as if wishing she could just tuck me into her pocket and take me away. I was somewhat puzzled which one of us was actually her biological grandchild. However, Zhou Tanyuan's illness really did seem to improve just a tiny bit. Nanny Qian said the physician had instructed that he shouldn't keep lying down all the time and that he had to get some exercise. She tasked me with supporting him for walks. At first, Zhou Tanyuan absolutely refused, even mockingly telling me,
Money tree, if you come to support me, I'm really afraid you'll trip me to death.
Young master, I absolutely won't trip you. He gave a soft snort.
As soon as those short little legs of yours stretch out, they're practically a tripwire.
I didn't talk back, but the next day, I threw his most precious book into the courtyard. It was that copy of Fuvin, the classic of mountains and sea sudden. He would hold and read it all day long, and even tuck it under his pillow when sleeping. While he was fast asleep, I quietly stole the book away and placed it under the sweet osmanthus tree. When he woke up and realized the book was missing, he searched the entire room. After searching all over and finding nothing, he turned his head and spotted the book outside the window. His face instantly turned pale. Pinching his philtrum to keep from fainting, he slumped into the armchair. My heart leapt. This reaction was even more dramatic than I had anticipated. He ordered me to go pick it up, but I simply refused. Zhou Tanyuan had no choice but to go himself. After that day, I threw the book out once every day, and he would grumble and curse every day as he went to pick it up. After 7 days of picking it up, he could make it out to the courtyard in one go. After half a month of picking it up, he could make it to the sweet osmanthus tree without taking a break, except every time he returned to the room after picking it up, he would pant heavily and then scold me again.
Shen Anluo, have you lost your mind? Who gave you permission to throw my book? Sooner or later, I'll throw you out.
I would wait for him to finish venting and then reply, when you are fully recovered, master, you can throw me out yourself. That would leave him speechless. It was the same during mealtimes. He ate very little, putting down his chopsticks after just a few bites. I would stand off to the side, staring at the table full of delicious food and constantly swallowing my saliva. He would let out a cold snort.
You're swallowing so loudly. I can hear it clearly. Sit down and eat, but don't you dare tell Mother Qian.
I picked up the chopsticks nervously. Mother Qian had said, the young master had a terrible appetite and that we had to find a way to make him eat more. Zhou Tanyuan's solution was to have me eat for him. My solution then was to clear everything on his behalf. Sitting across the table, he watched me devour the food like a whirlwind and was completely dumbfounded. Are you the reincarnation of a starved ghost? With my mouth stuffed full, I had no time to pay attention to him. It was simply too delicious. From then on, at every meal, he could never beat me to the food. Before he could even stretch out his chopsticks, the dishes would already be wiped clean by me. By midnight, Zhou Tanyuan would be too hungry to bear it. Shuffling his feet, he actually snuck into the kitchen himself to look for food. As expected, the potential of hunger is boundless. On this day, Zhou Tanyuan did something unprecedented and went out in a carriage to clear his mind. Leaning limply in the carriage, he lifted the curtain half-heartedly to look outside. Sitting beside him, I suddenly spotted a familiar figure in the crowd. It was my older brother, Shen Wang. He had been beaten black and blue and was limping along the street. The moment our eyes met, he froze. He came stumbling forward. He threw himself in front of the carriage.
Anluo.
The driver yanked hard on the reins. The horse neighed and came to a halt. Zhou Tanyuan was jolted inside the carriage and spoke in a terrible tone.
What is going on?
Before I could even speak, Shen Wang had already rushed to the carriage window, clinging to the curtain and peering inside.
Anluo, where have you been all this time? I've been looking for you for so long.
Who is this?
My brother.
Anluo, hurry up and come home with your brother.
Looking at his disheveled and pathetic face, I couldn't quite describe what I was feeling. Go back where? Brother. You even sold the house our parents left us, and you even told everyone that I was dead. Shen Wang's face turned pale. With a stern face, Zhou Tanyuan swept his gaze over him.
So you're the kind of trash who sells his own sister. You shameless piece of trash.
Who the hell do you think you are? Why are you interfering in our family affairs?
Do you plan to go home with him? Looking at his behavior, if you go home, he'll probably just sell you again. I've heard of thugs who buy children, break their limbs and send them out to beg.
My whole body shuddered, and I shook my head vigorously. Shen Wang grew anxious.
Anluo, you're the only family I have left.
I was set up by Wu Yuliang too. He was the one who egged me on to abandon you.
He even tricked me into going to the casino. Your big brother just had a momentary lapse of judgment. I only wanted to win a lot of money to pay for your medical treatment. I did it for your own good. You know, your medicine was just too expensive. It was like a bottomless pit. It was driving me crazy.
So those blue and purple bruises on his face were from being beaten by the casino's thugs? Brother, but you abandoned me twice. Just because you claim it was for my own good, does that give you the right to sell me and throw me away? His expression changed drastically. He probably didn't expect that I would know about this. Zhou Tanyuan leaned against the carriage wall and spoke lazily.
Anluo is currently a maid in my Marquis's manor. You want to take her away? Sure. Bring 100 taels of silver to redeem her.
Shen Wang's face fell.
100 taels. I don't have that money.
If you don't have money, why on earth did you run over here? Now get the hell out of here. My older brother laid right down in front of the carriage,
Spread his limbs, and began to wail loudly.
In broad daylight, they're kidnapping a woman from a decent family. There is no law and order.
Passers-by on the street began to gather around, pointing and whispering. Zhou Tanyuan's face turned as black as thunder.
Run him over.
My heart leaped into my throat. The coachman cracked his whip, and the horse took a step forward. Shen Wang scrambled to his feet and slipped away faster than a rabbit. I thought this matter was finally behind us, but the very next day, he actually showed up at the door. When the old matriarch summoned me to the main hall, Shen Wang was standing right there. The moment he saw me, he lunged forward.
Anluo.
I took a half step back.
Wasn't Anluo taken in by your parents?
How did the old matriarch find out? Even though she was taken in, I treated her incredibly well.
Brother, I am absolutely not going home with you. His expression changed. He pointed right at my nose and started yelling.
Have you lost your mind to wealth? Have you forgotten how hard we used to have it? Have you completely forgotten how well I treated you back then?
I haven't forgotten. It is precisely because I haven't forgotten that I can't accept this. Brother, it is like you've become a completely different person. Brother, are you planning to sell me off again to pay your gambling debts?
How did you know? No, I didn't.
As soon as the words escaped him, he was too guilty to look me in the eye. That was because Zhou Tanyuan had sent someone to find out last night. After Shen Wang sold the house, he was tricked by Wu Yuliang into believing he could win it back at the casino. If he won it back, he could take me to the capital for his exams and continue to afford my medicine. He wavered, but in the end, he lost everything and ended up deep in debt to loan sharks. If he couldn't pay them back, they were going to cut off his hands. That would have put an end to his dreams of the imperial exams. His face contorted with changing emotions before he finally forced a smile.
Anluo, I did support you for 2 years. Can't you help your brother out? Just give me 500 taels of silver. Once I win it back, we can live together again.
Brother, where on earth would I get 500 taels? But Shen Wang refused to give up.
Old madame, you have money. I know your grandson has a weak constitution. My sister is naturally blessed with good fortune. To use her to extend your grandson's life, shouldn't you pay me some compensation?
My heart turned completely cold. Where had the wise and steady brother from before gone? Zhou Tanyuan stepped into the room, sat down beside the old madame, and sneered.
Not a single penny. Your sister sold herself to me willingly. None of your business.
Anluo, why did you have to sell yourself to the Marquis's manor?
Tears streamed down my face before I knew it. Brother, if I hadn't sold myself, I would have starved to death. He opened his mouth as if his throat was being squeezed tight. Shen Wang was thrown out. I hid back in my room and had a good, hearty cry. I couldn't stop my tears no matter what. Zhou Tanyuan stood lingering outside my door for a long time.
Stop wailing like you're at a funeral. It is hurting my ears.
I sobbed and ignored him, so he spoke again.
Do you want to eat some hibiscus cakes?
I wiped my tears, looking up with 2 red, swollen eyes. Yes, on the 15th, Zhou Tanyuan fell ill again. The last time he fell ill, all the servants in the courtyard were dismissed beforehand. As a result, the next day not only did he smash the room to pieces, but he also remained unconscious for 3 days. This time, I didn't hide away. When the old lady was dismissing the servants, I hid myself. In the night, I crouched beneath his windowsill, pricking up my ears to listen for any movement. There was not a single sound. It was so quiet. It was as if someone had hanged themselves inside. My heart leapt into my throat. I pushed the door open and rushed in. The room was pitch black, with only moonlight filtering in through the cracks of the window. Zhou Tanyuan was curled up on the bed, his body arched like a large shrimp, his face as pale as paper. I had never seen a living person in this much pain before. I had absolutely no idea what to do. Unable to bear the pain any longer, Zhou Tanyuan began rolling around on the floor, banging his head against the wall, terrified that he would bite off his own tongue. I rushed forward. Young master, bite me instead. I won't feel any pain if you bite me. He snapped his eyes open, his eyeballs bloodshot. Squeezing the words out from between his teeth, he muttered,
Get out.
Bite me.
Get lost. If you dare stretch your hand over again, I will bite and break this branch of yours, you money tree. Do you believe me?
Go ahead and bite my hand. I was brought here to save your life anyway. He wrapped his hand around my neck, holding it loosely, and with great effort suppressed his anger before pushing me away.
Fool. Idiot. Get out.
He grabbed a pillow and threw it at me, locking me out of the room. Leaning against the door, I listened to the noises inside. I had no idea how long I waited, but the room finally went quiet. I pushed the door open. Zhou Tanyuan had slipped off the bed and was collapsed on the cold floor. I ran over and squatted beside him. Young master, young master. There was no response. I reached out to check his breathing. He was still breathing, but I couldn't drag him to save my life. I pulled and tugged for ages, but he was incredibly heavy, just like a pig. In the end, I had no other choice but to pull the blankets off the bed, drape them over him, and sit beside him to keep watch. Before I knew it, I fell fast asleep too. When broad daylight came, I groggily opened my eyes and realized I was resting my head on Zhou Tanyuan's stomach. The posture couldn't have been more awkward. Suddenly, the door was flung open, and a noblewoman dressed in luxurious clothes entered. She rushed forward and held me in a tight embrace.
Bangxia. My darling, oh Bangxia.
I was completely bewildered. What on earth was going on? Who was Bangxia, and who was this woman? Zhou Tanyuan propped himself up from the floor, stunned.
Aunt, why did you come all the way here? Aren't you supposed to be staying at Xiao Temple? This is my little sister, Bangxia.
She is my real Bangxia. When she was little, she was stolen away and abandoned on a barren mountain. It was a family of hunters who found you and raised you. A while ago, Mother Qian sent someone with a letter, and I immediately had people investigate everything thoroughly. Your real name is Bangxia.
I opened my mouth, an indescribable feeling welling up in my heart. I felt like crying, yet I was also incredibly happy. She reached out her hand and gently caressed my cheek. Her tears dripped onto the back of my hand.
You are my real Bangxia. I am your real mother.
My real mother? I actually had a real mother. I actually had a family. I was no longer an unwanted stray. My mother held me tightly, sobbing hysterically. I reached out my small hand and gently patted her back. Mother, don't cry anymore. Bangxia is back. She held me even tighter. The matriarch made the decision that very day to prepare for our return to the capital. She insisted on hosting a grand banquet to let everyone in the capital know that the young lady of the Marquis's household had been found. I asked my mother about my father.
Your father. died in battle. He was the great general defender of the state. Protecting the country was his duty.
The general defender of the state. I had heard of him. My adoptive mother had mentioned him before. If the general defender of the state hadn't led his troops past our small village back then, it would have been completely wiped out by bandits. That great hero turned out to be my real father. As it turned out, I had come so close to meeting my real father. My mother tried to persuade Zhou Tanyuan to return to the capital with us, but he flatly refused.
Yuan, even though your parents had another son, you have always been in their thoughts.
Zhou Tanyuan hung his head, looking utterly dejected.
In their thoughts. He probably wishes I were dead. After all, I almost choked Zir to death back then.
Was Zir his younger brother? During his fit, he had almost choked his own biological brother to death. But last night, he had desperately controlled himself and didn't choke me to death. Young master, big brother, come home with me. Look, you didn't hurt me at all last night. My mother chimed in to support me.
Yuan, come home with us. Your father has already found news of the antidote.
Truly?
Absolutely true. A letter from home just arrived a few days ago, saying they found it.
He stood there, the expression on his face shifting constantly. When you have your fits, I'll protect you. Zhou Tanyuan reached out with his finger and flicked my forehead.
You, my little money tree, how could you possibly protect me?
I covered my forehead and stared at him with a thoroughly aggrieved look.
You are my sister, so I should be the one protecting you.
A sudden warmth filled my heart. It felt wonderful. I finally had a big brother again. However, Zhou Tanyuan still adamantly refused to return to the capital. He insisted on being completely cured before going back, so as to avoid accidentally harming the family members who loved him. My mother and the others decided to stay behind, sending for the medicinal ingredients to be brought from the capital, so they could accompany Zhou Tanyuan until he was completely cured before returning together. I borrowed some travel money from my mother, intending to give it to Ding Daqiang. After all, it was thanks to him taking me in back then. I also wanted to ask him along the way if he would be willing to go to the capital with me to make a living in the future, but I never expected that he had already been waiting at the back gate of the courtyard. Ding Daqiang jumped up abruptly and shoved the money pouch back into my palm.
You silly girl, who allowed you to sell yourself without saying a word? I can work myself to the bone to support Chow Chow. Who needs you to do this? I couldn't break into this grand estate, and I was worried sick. I used a little bit of the money in this pouch to pay brother Hu, but I went to the docks to carry heavy sacks and made up for the difference.
Chow Chow poked her little head out from the side, gesturing anxiously. Ding Daqiang said.
Chow Chow says she was worried sick too.
Looking at the money pouch in my palm, a wave of warmth rushed through my heart. Brother Daqiang, I found my family.
Say what?
My birth mother came looking for me. I explained the whole story to him. When Ding Daqiang finished listening, his jaw almost dropped to the ground in shock.
You are the daughter of the great general of the state.
I nodded my head.
This is wonderful news, my lady Bangxia.
I quickly grabbed him to pull him up. Brother Daqiang, are you willing to come to the capital with me? My mother said my health can be better taken care of in the capital, so Chow Chow will surely be fine there too. Ding Daqiang's eyes instantly welled up with tears.
My lady Bangxia, please accept my bow.
I hurriedly and firmly stopped him. Don't go kneeling at every turn. Come into the estate with me to meet my mother. I mentioned to my mother that I wanted to take them to the capital with us, and she agreed without hesitation. Chow Chow came to live under the same roof with me, while Ding Daqiang was directly promoted to be the manager by my side. After waiting for just a few days, people from the capital delivered the medicine by fast horse. Taking this medicine would cause immense suffering. Either he would be lucky enough to neutralize the poison, or he would directly lose his mind and go mad. I shuddered in fear.
Bear with it a little longer while we look for other prescriptions. Perhaps we can reduce the risk.
Auntie, I don't want to endure this for even another day. Every time the illness flares up, the pain is unbearable. When I regain my senses and realize I've hurt my own flesh and blood again, in those moments, I wish I could just slit my throat right then and there.
My mother's eyes welled with tears.
No one blames you.
But I blame myself. I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around him. My newly found brother, you must hold on. Live on so you can go to the capital with me to recuperate. Brother, do you know how to climb trees? Do you know how to steal bird eggs? The older brothers in our village before would always do these things for their younger sisters. Shen Wang's face flashed in my mind. He was a scholar, always saying these were vulgar things that only coarse people did, so he never played with me, only nagging at me to stay inside the room and not run out, lest I fall ill. Zhou Tanyuan rubbed my forehead.
When I I fully recover, I can even catch wild rabbits for you.
The old lady with red eyes didn't speak to stop him anymore. He locked himself tightly in the room and swallowed the bowl of medicine. I wanted to climb in through the window, but he had nailed the window shut as well. I paced around in circles, anxious and helpless. My mother was copying Buddhist scriptures for Zhou Tanyuan in the ancestral hall, while the old lady brought a chair to keep watch in the courtyard. From time to time, agonizing screams came from inside the room, each one weaker than the last, each one hoarser than the last. I leaned against the crack of the door, my tears flowing uncontrollably, completely soaking my sleeves. We endured from early morning until dark. Lanterns were hung up in the courtyard. Suddenly, all sound from the room cut off. I clung tightly to the door, pressing my ear against the wooden panel, listening desperately. The sliver of hope in my heart began to sink bit by bit. Could it be that he didn't make it? The door suddenly burst open. A pair of arms caught me just as I was about to fall. It was Zhou Tanyuan. His face was covered in sweat, with strands of hair clinging to his forehead, but he was grinning widely. "Brother, are you cured?"
I am completely recovered.
The old lady was taken aback for a moment. She pulled out her handkerchief to wipe the corners of her eyes.
Bansia really is our little lucky star.
The physician came to feel his pulse. The poison in Zhou Tanyuan's body had been cleared, but his constitution was still weak. He needed to stay active and slowly nurse himself back to health.
Once I am fully recovered, I'll let you ride a pony.
Ride a pony? My eyes lit up instantly. On the day we were to return to the capital, Shen Wang suddenly rushed out and grabbed me tightly.
Anluo, I found your relatives. Come home with me quickly.
He pulled me so hard I nearly stumbled. But weren't my relatives at the Marquis's manor? Ding Daqiang lunged forward from the side and tightly gripped Shen Wang's arm.
Let go of her, Shen Wang. You keep claiming you found Anluo's family, but do you even know who her family is?
Shen Wang's eyes darted around as he boasted.
Do you know the Lai family on West Street? They are wealthy landowners, filthy rich. Even though you are from the Marquis's manor, Master Li has declared that he is willing to pay 100 taels of silver to redeem her.
Ding Daqiang was stunned for a moment, then pointed at his nose and cursed.
Shen, that Lai Dayong forces himself on decent women and has committed countless evils. How could he possibly have a daughter? He has mistreated and coerced others before. Are you trying to sell Anluo to him?
Zhou Tanyuan stepped forward unnoticed at some point. He stepped hard on Shen Wang's fingers.
Do you plead guilty?
Shen Wang grimaced in pain, yet he still stubbornly refused to back down.
What do you mean, child bride? He is a highly charitable man. Stop spewing your nonsense here.
If you have the guts, let's confront him face to face. His wife is a legendary shrew. Everyone in the neighborhood knows that. He only has an only son.
I stood frozen in place, staring at Shen Wang's flushed, red face, suddenly feeling an immense sense of estrangement. Brother, I have found my real family. The young master is my real brother, and I have also found my real mother. My real mother stepped forward and pulled me into her embrace.
Young Master Shen, I have made some inquiries. Years ago, your parents took Anluo's personal jade pendant and pawned it for 80 taels of silver. During those 2 years, your family's financial situation suddenly became prosperous, all thanks to the silver pawned from that precious piece. Yet, when Anluo fell into the water and became gravely ill, you couldn't even bear the expense to call a physician. You merely burned paper charms and forced the ash water down her throat. If it weren't for Anluo's sheer resilience,
I was dumbfounded by what I heard. So, after all this time, the medicine was not bought by sacrificing everything they had. It was just paper ash. They lied and said they had exhausted their family wealth, and I actually believed them. Shen Wang's face turned pale, inch by inch.
That is not true.
after your parents passed away, you kept Anluo, hoping her relatives would find her and offer you a handsome reward, didn't you? After all, that jade pendant was of astronomical value. Anyon with eyes could see that Anluo came from an extraordinary background. If you hadn't pawned the jade pendant, I would never have misidentified my child back then, my own dear daughter, and I was kept apart from my darling daughter for so long.
Zhou Tanyuan was furious. He stomped down hard, making Shen Wang shriek.
I endured it for 2 years. Her illness was a bottomless pit. No matter how much money I threw at it, it was never enough. Why didn't you people look for her sooner?
Zhou Tanyuan looked down at him, his eyes filled with utter disgust. You don't deserve to be Anluo's brother. Get lost. My mother pulled me into the carriage. Shen Wang wailed from behind.
Anluo?
I didn't turn my head at all. Brother Shen, thank you for being my brother in the past, but I can never call you brother again. Outside the gates of the Marquis's manor in the Imperial City, a large crowd had already gathered. The Marquis and the Madame are waiting for us right there. The moment I stepped out of the carriage, a small figure rushed toward me. He scurried up to me, reached out his tiny hand, and tightly grasped my finger.
Pretty sister.
Zir, this is Sister Bangxia.
Zir clung to me, burying himself in my embrace, and planted a wet kiss right on my cheek. Zhou Tanyuan stood by the carriage, frozen in place. His expression was extremely conflicted. Zir spotted Zhou Tanyuan too, and toddled over to him.
Brother, hold me.
Zhou Tanyuan hesitated for a moment, then bent down and pulled the boy into his arms. A tear slid down his cheek. Zir felt the wet warmth on his shoulder.
Brother, it is raining. Go inside. Go inside to shelter from the rain.
As his arms became empty, Zhou Tanyuan's eyes darkened, and he stood there, completely at a loss.
I definitely didn't hurt Zir. I only held him. My body has long since fully recovered.
Before he could finish his words, the madam was already choking with tears. My Yuan, your mother has been longing for you to come home every single day. The Marquis took a step forward and patted him on the shoulder, scanning him from head to toe, nodding his head.
Not bad. You're much sturdier than when we last saw you.
You came to see me.
Your mother was truly worried about you. It is wonderful that you have recovered.
He turned his face to look at me, his eyes shining.
This must be little Bangxia, right? What a lovely girl.
I greeted them properly. Aunt. Then, turning to face the Marquis. Uncle, the madam couldn't get enough of pinching my cheeks. After pinching the left cheek, she pinched the right, muttering to herself.
How can they be so soft?
Aunt, my face is going to swell up. Zir clapped and laughed beside us.
Sister's face is swollen.
In the blink of an eye, another year had passed. My health had fully recovered, and I no longer collapsed every few days. Chow Chow was finally able to speak, though he could only spit out words one by one. When he got anxious, he would gesticulate wildly, spinning himself in circles out of sheer frustration. Once, he wanted to say, "Miss, eat candy." He gestured for a long time, squeezing out sister and candy. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't get the word eat out in the middle. In the end, he spun in circles 3 times in anger and just stuffed the candy into my mouth to get it over with. Zhou Tanyuan was true to his word. He took me to hunt wild rabbits and shouted that he would teach me how to climb trees, only to be caught by the Marquis. Without a word, the Marquis sent him off to practice martial arts. How could a dignified young master of the Marquis's household climb trees to steal bird eggs? It was utterly disgraceful. Later, when he returned after mastering his martial arts, the very first thing he did was carry me up onto a branch.
See, look how easily you made it up here.
Sitting astride a tree branch, with my legs dangling in midair, I was so terrified that I clung tightly to the branch and wouldn't let go. He laughed so hard under the tree that he doubled over, so I pelted him with a headful of fallen leaves. My mother stopped running off to the temple. She said no matter how accurate the Bodhisattva's prophecies were, it wasn't as reassuring as staying home and keeping an eye on her daughter. She guided Chow Chow and me in practicing calligraphy. Chow Chow held the brush as if he were grabbing a hoe. With one slide of the brush, ink splattered everywhere, and the characters on the paper looked like chicken scratch. My mother didn't get angry either. She held his hand and guided him stroke by stroke. I would lean over the desk to practice my characters, while Zir caused mischief beside me, painting a mustache on my cheek. I chased him wildly around the courtyard and painted his face like a wild cat in return. A long time later, I heard Ding Dakyang talking about Shen Wang. Someone had broken his arms and legs and thrown him into a river canal to freeze all night. By the time he was pulled ashore, he was already half dead. Ding Dakyang said it was the work of casino thugs because his debts were too huge to settle. I remained silent for a long time, only then realizing that I hadn't thought about him for ages.